Imagine opening your mail, just, a regular Tuesday, and you find out your driver's license is being canceled.
Oh, man. Panic mode immediately.
Right, and it's not because you ran a red light or maybe you forgot to renew your insurance or something.
Yeah, the usual suspects.
Exactly. It's because a computer algorithm thinks you passed your written exam a little too quickly.
Which is just wild to even think about.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack this massive administrative crisis that is currently unfolding at the California DMV.
And it is a big one.
Huge. We are pulling from this really fascinating investigative piece called Guilty Until Retested, along with some on-the-ground reporting from CBS News Sacramento and the LA Times. We're really going to explore this crazy collision between rapid government digitization, unproven AI, and, well, basic due process.
Yeah, and look, this is something you really need to care about, whether you live in California or not, or honestly, whether you even drive or not.
Yeah, it goes way beyond just cars.
Exactly. This isn't just a local traffic story. This is a crucial, real-time case study for anyone navigating a world where these black box algorithms are increasingly governing our basic everyday privileges. I mean, we are looking at a fundamental shift in how the state interacts with the citizen.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the sheer scale of the disruption here is, frankly, it's pretty staggering.
Staggering is a good word for it.
Let's look at the actual notices themselves. So these irregularities letters have been landing in mailboxes statewide.
Yeah.
And they basically give drivers an ultimatum, right? Like, your license will be canceled unless you schedule an in-person, appointment-only written retest.
Yeah, appointment only being the key word there.
Right. And the timeline the DMV cited for this whole sweep, it covers exams taken anywhere between July 2025 and April 2026.
So that is a 10-month window.
Exactly.
And, it's not just a handful of isolated glitches here and there. We are talking about 11,000 residents who are suddenly caught up in this administrative dragnet.
11,000 people, just bam.
Yeah.
And we have specific stories from the reporting that highlight exactly what this looks like on the ground for regular people. Take this one Sacramento driver, David Specht.
Oh, right. His story was rough.
Yeah. So he took his online test, passed it back in January, and, just moved on with his life. Months go by. And then suddenly he gets this vague letter in the mail.
Out of nowhere.
Totally out of nowhere. So he tries to get to the bottom of it, obviously, picks up the phone, calls the DMV to clear up what must obviously be like a clerical error. And he is met with a complete brick wall.
Just silence.
Absolute silence. No explanation at all. He told reporters, quote, "I know I didn't cheat." And he pointed out that he assumes the vast majority of the other 11,000 people didn't cheat either. But the DMV just, they aren't offering any avenues for discussion.
And see, that brings us to the real human cost of this kind of bureaucratic sweep. I mean, a driver's license is not a luxury item in this country.
Oh, absolutely not.
It is a fundamental economic engine. For working-class individuals especially, it is literally the barrier between having a job and losing one.
Yeah, you need it for everything.
Right. It's required for school drop-offs, picking up prescriptions, just going to get groceries. And the state is really compounding the burden here by refusing to allow walk-ins to resolve the issue.
Yeah, that part is crazy to me. You can't just, swing by your local office on a lunch break and re-verify your identity or take the test on a kiosk.
No, you have to make an appointment. And think about it, because 11,000 people were suddenly thrown back into the system all at once. Those appointments are incredibly scarce right now.
I can't even imagine the backlog.
It's massive. We're seeing reports of affected drivers, many of whom are, low-income workers or single parents who definitely do not get paid time off, having to drive hours to entirely different regional offices just to secure a slot.
Just to retake a test they already passed.
Exactly. So they're losing wages, they're burning gas, and dealing with immense stress, all because an automated system threw a flag.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure, go for it.
We know that when you move tests online, people are going to try to game the system. I mean, that's just human nature. If you aren't sitting in a physical DMV with a proctor watching your every move, the temptation to just, open another browser window and Google the right-of-way rules is huge.
Oh, yeah, the temptation is definitely there.
So doesn't the state have a legitimate obligation to ensure the integrity of its testing? If 11,000 flags pop up in their system, what are they realistically supposed to do? They don't have the manpower to manually review every single test session.
Well, look, you're right. The state absolutely has an obligation to maintain test integrity. I mean, having drivers on the road who genuinely understand traffic laws is a critical safety mandate. Nobody is arguing against that.
Right.
But the issue here is how they are achieving it. They have essentially adopted a system of collective punishment.
Okay, how so?
Well, in a functional administrative and legal framework, if the state wants to revoke a privilege you've already been granted, they have the burden of proof.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They need to provide individualized evidence. They need to be able to say, David, on January 14th, at minute 12 of your test, you opened another tab.
Right, you did X, Y, or Z.
Exactly. But instead, they are offering zero specific evidence. They are shifting the burden entirely onto the citizen to prove their innocence.
It reminds me of a smoke detector.
Okay. Oh,
It's like if you install a highly sensitive smoke detector in your kitchen, it might go off every single time you make toast. The machine is functioning exactly as it was programmed to function. It detects particulate matter in the air.
Yeah, technically it's doing its job.
Right. But it entirely lacks the human context to know that the house isn't actually on fire. It just screams until you deal with it.
Yep.
And here, the DMV has installed this digital smoke detector, and instead of checking to see if there's actually a fire in the kitchen, they're just throwing 11,000 people out of the house.
What's fascinating here is how that analogy perfectly captures the mechanics of digital proctoring.
Right.
Yeah, because when the DMV aggressively pushed to move services online, to eliminate those legendary physical wait times we all hate, they had to compensate for the loss of a human proctor.
Because nobody is actually watching you.
Exactly. So to do that, according to the LA Times reports, they rolled out these advanced AI-assisted monitoring tools. But here's the catch. These tools don't watch you the way a human does. They establish baselines.
Okay, so if there's no specific evidence against people like David Speck, what exactly triggered these 11,000 letters? How did that actually work? Like, what is the algorithm actually looking for?
It looks at a massive, massive stream of metadata.
Okay.
It monitors how long you spend on a specific page. It tracks keystroke dynamics, like how fast you type or click. It monitors whether your mouse cursor leaves the active testing window.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and in some advanced systems, it even tracks eye movement via your webcam. Or it listens for background audio thresholds.
That is intensely creepy.
It is. The software compiles all this data and compares it against a statistical average of what a quote-unquote normal test taker looks like. If your behavior deviates from that mathematical baseline by a certain percentage, boom, the system throws a flag.
Okay, so let's say you're neurodivergent and you look away from the screen a lot while you think. Or, I don't know, what if you're just a really fast reader? You naturally deviate from their baseline.
Exactly. And the reporting heavily suggests this is precisely what is happening here. A significant portion of these so-called irregularities were likely triggered because people simply completed the test, quote unquote, too quickly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because, think about the irony here. The entire promise of digitizing government services was to save the citizen time.
Because the whole pitch.
Yeah. You study the manual, you know the material cold, you sit down at your computer, and you efficiently click through all the answers. And your reward for being overly prepared is that the AI flags you as a cheater because you didn't take long enough.
Yeah, it's brutal.
The DMV promised to eliminate the waiting room, but all they really did was just digitize the waiting room and then layer this, unproven algorithmic paranoia on top of it.
It really is the ultimate irony of efficiency.
Yeah.
And because the algorithm is treated as a black box, meaning the inputs go in and a decision comes out, but the actual internal reasoning is completely hidden, the citizen has absolutely no way to defend themselves.
And the DMV itself refuses to clarify. They keep pointing to this vague, quote, regular internal monitoring process. They won't definitively answer whether these 11,000 anomalies represent actual coordinated human cheating or if it's just a software bug or simply an overtuned algorithm flagging fast readers.
Which points to a really profound decoupling of the state's licensing authority from the concept of due process.
Yeah, due process is totally lost here.
Due process, at its absolute core, requires transparency. You have the right to confront your accuser. But how on earth do you confront an unexplainable line of proprietary code?
Can't.
No. If the DMV purchased this software from a third-party vendor, it is entirely possible that the agency itself doesn't even know the exact mathematical weighting the AI uses to determine a failure. They just get a spreadsheet with 11,000 names on it, and they act on it.
But surely the agency understands that sending out tens of thousands of cancellation threats without concrete proof is a terrible look. Like, why wouldn't they just hit pause on the system, audit the AI, and figure out why it's generating so many flags before they cause a public panic?
Ugh. Well, that brings us to a well-documented psychological phenomenon in bureaucracy, which is institutional shield building.
Institutional shield building. Okay, what's that?
So when a government agency invests heavily in a new technological solution, especially one that's designed to prevent fraud, and that system starts generating anomalous data, the agency's primary instinct is rarely transparency.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, the instinct is self-preservation.
Meaning they protect the system to protect themselves from looking incompetent.
Exactly, because if they admit the AI is throwing thousands of false positives, they suddenly have to answer to the state legislature about why they spend millions of taxpayer dollars on a faulty system.
Right. Why did you buy this broken toy?
Exactly. So rather than quietly rolling up their sleeves, investigating the root cause, and fixing their internal flaws, they default to protecting the shield. They validate the machine by acting on its outputs. They issue blanket ultimatums to the public.
Man, we've absolutely seen this exact playbook before. The source material actually draws a direct comparison to the EDD fraud panic during the pandemic,
Yes.
the Employment Development Department.
That is the absolute perfect historical precedent for this. So during the height of COVID-19, the state was just overwhelmed with unemployment claims. And to be clear, there was genuine widespread fraud happening then.
Right, there were actual criminal rings exploiting the system.
Yes. So the EDD implemented these automated fraud detection algorithms to sort of stem the bleeding, but the system was a blunt instrument.
Right, because it threw massive red flags on hundreds of thousands of accounts, simply because the system itself was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of unfamiliar data patterns.
And what did the state do?
They panicked.
They panicked. They froze the benefits of thousands upon thousands of legitimate, desperate claimants. People who suddenly couldn't pay their rent or buy food were just locked out of their accounts with zero immediate recourse.
It was a nightmare for so many people.
It really was. The agency couldn't manually review the backlog, so they just let the algorithm act as judge, jury, and executioner. It was a massive institutional shield-building exercise. They protected the integrity of the unemployment fund by devastating the actual citizens it was meant to help.
So we are seeing the exact same reflex here with the DMV.
Yep.
The AI generates this massive list of anomalies. The agency can't process the nuance, so they just freeze everyone out and force them to prove their innocence.
Yes. And it completely transforms genuine accountability into collective punishment. Look, if there's a legitimate cheating ring, like if people are actually running a sophisticated operation to game the DMV online tests, a healthy administrative state would investigate, identify, and prosecute those specific bad actors.
Not everyone.
Right. Taking a sweeping, heavy-handed approach against 11,000 people just because of some metadata is an abuse of authority.
So what does this all mean? We are looking at a situation where the standard has quite literally become guilty until proven innocent. And it really makes you wonder if the DMV is acting out of this intense institutional paranoia precisely because they don't actually understand the software they just integrated.
That's the scary part.
Right. If you don't fully grasp how the black box calculates a failure, your only defense mechanism is to just blindly trust the box and punish anyone it points a finger at.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights a fundamental crisis in how modern democracies implement technology. I mean, a healthy government absolutely requires its agencies to be accountable to the public they serve.
Definitely.
You cannot maintain public trust if your systems leave citizens guilty until retested. You can't just force them to endure these logistical nightmares to reclaim a privilege they already legitimately earned.
Because it completely erodes the social contract.
It really does. A functioning government has to balance its need for security and integrity with genuine fairness. And achieving that balance requires specific structural safeguards.
Like what kind of safeguards?
Well, it means establishing a highly transparent appeals process where a citizen can actually see the data being used against them. And most importantly, it requires meaningful human oversight of automated systems. You simply cannot let the machine have the final say on revoking a privilege.
It really is a high-stakes balancing act. And, we have to impartially report on this tension because both sides honestly have valid core mandates here.
Sure. Yeah.
The state absolutely has to ensure that the people operating 2-ton vehicles on public highways actually know the rules of the road. Test integrity isn't just bureaucratic red tape. It is a vital public safety measure.
No one wants unqualified drivers on the road.
Exactly. But on the other side of that scale is the fundamental right to fairness. Citizens shouldn't have their livelihoods upended, their wages lost, and their time wasted by an opaque computer glitch that no human being is willing to explain or, frankly, take responsibility for.
And this is exactly why this story extends far beyond the borders of California or even just the walls of a DMV. As administrative states everywhere face budget cuts and, intense pressure to operate more efficiently, they are going to aggressively digitize.
Oh, without a doubt.
They are increasingly going to turn to automated systems to handle the massive volume of public interactions, and they'll be quietly bypassing human accountability in the process.
We're going to see this in everything.
Everything, whether it's how your taxes are audited, how your healthcare benefits are allocated, or even how your business licenses are approved, the temptation for bureaucracies to hide behind the shield of black box algorithms, to just let the software take the blame for unpopular decisions, is only going to grow. We are basically watching the trial run right now.
Wow. So as we synthesize everything we've unpacked in this deep dive today, we've seen how a well-intentioned push for digital convenience, like the really appealing promise of taking your written driving test from your living room sofa, devolved into a severe due process crisis.
Yeah, went sideways fast.
We've seen how the mechanics of digital proctoring, relying on these unbending statistical baselines, can flag perfectly innocent behavior just because someone reads fast. And we've seen how institutional self-preservation ensures that when the tech fails, it's the everyday working people who are forced to pay the price.
It really leaves us in a precarious position as citizens, and I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to really mull over, building on this whole collision of algorithmic enforcement and civil rights.
Okay, lay it on us.
If our daily privileges and absolute necessities are increasingly governed by black box algorithms that even government agencies cannot fully explain or control, are we approaching a future where citizens are going to require a digital Miranda warning?
Wait, a digital Miranda warning?
Yes. Think about it. A fundamental, mandated legal requirement that forces the state to tell you upfront exactly how your behavior is being tracked, timed, and scored by an AI before you interact with any government service.
Oh, wow.
Just as you have the right to remain silent when you're arrested, perhaps you need the right to know how your very keystrokes are being weaponized against you.
That is a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
You have the right to know the baseline you are being measured against.
Exactly.
Well, until we get that kind of transparency, you might want to think twice before you walk out to the mailbox on a Tuesday. You just never know when a black box has decided you need to prove yourself all over again.